This is a direct view into my brain, into my subconscious. This is what happens when I can't sleep. I crank out a full park in 4 hours. And it might surprise you that this park took only 4 hours, because there's quite a bit of detail in it. Starting with the path art, which all of that I covered in a previous video. I figured I'd separate the two because the path art was literally half of this build. It was 2 hours already. And path art is not for everyone, so that's why I separated it. Path art in one video, and the rest of the speed build is the rest of the build. And this is actually the first habitat that I'm building in this park. By the way, thank you so much for checking out this video, and I hope that is going to give you inspiration for your own park builds. And let me know if you like this video. Give the video a thumbs up, and of course subscribe for more. So we have this like circular habitat, and there aren't any viewing galleries directly attached to the habitat itself. Instead, you can see that I put the viewing gallery behind the path on this little bit of an elevation, and I feel like that actually creates a really cool effect with people walking in front of the gallery, but not directly obstructing the view. And I think it's just a really cool way to keep the shape of the enclosure and have it be like this open thing, you know, with invisible fencing, no big fences around it. And then the viewing gallery off to the side, which is something I feel like you might want to try for some of your own builds. Now, what I really go full out with as of late is lining path with planters, with wall pieces. Nowadays, this is very strange actually, but nowadays path no longer feels complete without some sort of, like, let's call it a curb, you know, some sort of a curb around it. So I do a lot of that in my park builds. And the reason I say that's strange is because if you've been here for a while, then you know that path is kind of my thing. It's kind of how this whole situation started, right? With just a lot of path. And in Jurassic World Evolution 1, that was enough. And it was enough because we didn't have anything else, obviously. But now, looking at, like, bare pathwork, it's missing something. So that's why I always do my best to add as many planters and wall pieces and other stuff that I can stand and that my PC can handle. And that's what I recommend you try as well. If you're feeling like your parks aren't up to snuff, if you're feeling like, okay, I spent a lot of time in this park and still something's not right about it, just check your pathwork and see if maybe you can just add some detailing around there. You're really gonna see a difference in quality when you take the time to do that, especially when you're the type of person who enjoys walking around their own parks, you know, with the first person mode. It's just way more enjoyable and way more realistic if you have a lot of stuff lining the path, because really that's what a zoo would do as well. They would sort of line off the path so you wouldn't wander about in the bushes where you're not supposed to be. Speaking of walking around in first person mode, I will of course be doing a tour for this park as well in a separate video. So if you want to see that, if you want to see all of the detail in real time up close, then if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the tour for this park. And it's gonna be a little different. It's gonna have a couple of surprises, because what you might notice during this video is that I'm not adding the dinosaurs yet. I'm leaving the species choices as a surprise for the tour. See if we can build some suspense in that regard, and maybe we'll bring in the sarcastic tour guide to take us through this park and have a fun time with that. But for this video, I just hope that seeing the building process is going to inspire you for your own builds. And what I also thought would be funny about building a complete park, like all of the habitats are there, they're just empty. And what I thought would be interesting about that is that this would be a good park to share the save file with my paleontologist channel members, because then you have an Evo built park, but you can add your own favorite dinosaurs. So I thought that was kind of a fun opportunity as well. But of course, no worries, the park will not remain empty. We will get some excitement going during the tour when that's going to happen. So the layout of this park is obviously based very much on the path artwork that I did, right? So it has like this huge circular centerpiece, center plaza, with a couple of other plazas like this one branching off of it, sort of in a, like, asymmetrically. I didn't stick to the symmetry for the entire park layout, and that just really dictates how the rest of the park build is going. And this park build, it has a lot of really huge enclosures with tours going through them, and then the tours also double up as transportation. So, for example, this huge exhibit, it has a tour going through, but it has, I think this one has 2 tour buildings so that people can hop on, hop off, and get around the park that way as well. Now, of course, having a number of really big enclosures like this one is the key to being able to build a full park in only 4 hours, but still have it have the amount of detail that I personally appreciate a park build to have. And I guess maybe that's a tip for you guys if you're sort of, let's say you're building a park and you're kind of losing steam, which I totally relate to. I get that myself as well. Like, after a while, you've just drained your inspiration, your patience, and whatever other unnatural force you tap into to be able to build park after park in this game like I do. After a while, whatever it is, the X factor, you just run out of it. So maybe you could try this approach yourself. Don't go into a park build with the knowledge that, oh my god, this is gonna take 8 to 10 hours. You can make something really cool in less than half of that time. And I hope that this park build shows you that. And yeah, one of the cheats is to make the exhibits really big. But is that really a bad thing? Is it really a cheat? Or is it just a win for your dinosaurs who get to live in these huge enclosures? I think it's a win. I think we should all embrace it. So I'm chucking this aviary in here. The tour is gonna go through here as well. So the car's gonna go through, well, basically I've separated this one huge exhibit into 2 huge exhibits, right? So the tour goes through one, then through the aviary, and then through the other one. And there's like this path heading up to the aviary gallery with some shops in front of it as well. And I built like a simplified version of like my favorite template for building bridges across this river that is snaking through this entire enclosure. And we're also sort of like making more natural bridges for the tour so the tour can cross over the river as well. And here you can see that second tour station where the tour connects to, so again, people can get on at one point and get off at another, so that it also doubles as transportation in your park. I am personally a really big fan of using the monorail tracks for different purposes than what they really are, as in monorail transportation. If you know the channel, then you know I like monorail roofs, I like monorail arches, you know, using the monorail track as sort of a building option. And that's present in this park as well. This park around the center plaza has like a couple of stretches of monorail that are just supposed to be like these decorative things. But interestingly, in spite of me really enjoying using the monorail tracks that way, I'm personally not that big of a fan of having monorail transportation in my parks. I think it's really difficult to let the track go through the park in a way that doesn't feel like this big eyesore. So that's why I really like using the tours as transport as well, because they're much more low-key, they're not nearly as prominent as these hugely tall monorail tracks, which I then instead prefer to use as decorations. Now, I do have monorail stations in this park, so I don't quite know why I went off on this tangent, but here we are. Like I said, you're getting insight into my brain, into the inner workings of my psyche on not enough sleep. Like, far less than minimally required for human beings to function. That's what's happening right now. So here we are. We have another path circle going on. I'm doing like this alternating pattern of different path colors. It doesn't work out entirely perfectly, but you know, you can make it work. I thought this was kind of cute, like this little bandit design, super simple. Something I did quite a bit in this park. And again, it was not just a time saver, but I also feel like it's something you just should do. And that is, instead of making every open space an exhibit, I'm adding a lot of just decorative gardens, I guess you would call it. Like this thing right here. This is not going to be an exhibit. If you wanted to, you could easily turn it into an exhibit, you know, just whip out the invisible fencing, line it with invisible fencing, and you can chuck a dinosaur in there. But personally, I really like, you probably know this, but I really like wasting space. And maybe I took that to a bit of an extreme in this park, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. And I sort of feel like it actually is a pretty good fit, like for a luxury resort and a destination resort even. Because yeah, people come here for the dinosaurs, but it's also just likely at least a hugely different and new environment for our guests. So the island itself, honestly, is a destination and is beautiful and should be experienced. And I'm rambling again. I shouldn't be doing that. So I finished this nice garden. I just feel like it makes your parks look so much nicer if you sacrifice some spaces instead of putting a dinosaur in there and sort of like making it a little bit messy by adding fences. Just make it a garden. Just once in a while, instead of chucking a dinosaur in there, make it a garden. That's all I'm saying. I'll stop it there. But here we go. I like moved the terrain a little bit over there because what I really always love doing is giving hotels a nice view. So I think pretty much every single hotel that is on this map is on a bit of an elevation. It is on the edge of that elevation, and then it just has this nice expansive view into an exhibit or into one of those gardens that I mentioned. And the same with these two viewing towers over there. You know, just a nice elevated perspective into habitats and the surroundings itself. Now, here we go. I just spent way too long rambling about my dislike for the monorails as transport, but I felt like I should incorporate it in this park. So here we go. It is one of 4 stations. My personal trick, quote unquote, to minimize the amount of monorail tracks in your parks that is without a decorative use is to not have it loop. You'll see that these 2 are connected via this long monorail track, and the other 2 stations were connected. But they are not connected to each other, and they don't loop around. Just let the monorail train go back and forth, you know, shuttle back and forth. That's perfectly fine. There, I just created an alternating pattern using my favorite new tool, the move tool. I can't believe I never knew about that. And we're just moving on. In this, like, circular path art situation, I left those open spaces for a garden, so I put those trees in there. And this time around, I am using the central area for a habitat. And again, I'm just using the invisible fencing with the wall pieces to line the path to add that curb, which I feel like it now needs. Unfortunately for me, my brain has decided that it just doesn't look right without it anymore. By the way, if you are curious about the path art section and you missed that video, you can find that video on the channel. I think it's the most recent long form video that I did. I think I've only done a couple of shorts in the meantime, so you can easily find the process of the path art on the channel. And I will come clean and admit again that that was half of the build. The total build time was 4 hours. The path art alone was 2. It's just, for most people, it's a tedious process that's not worth it. I personally find it very soothing. It's just a nice distraction. I don't really know how to describe. It's like knitting, you know. It's one of those activities that just it's calming to me. So that's why I enjoy doing path art and why I did it this week after straying away from it for quite a bit. Here we have another tour going through a huge habitat, and this tour has 3 stations attached to it. So 3 points where a guest can get on and off. And again, that just helps with the transport because this tour not only provides the experience of seeing the dinosaurs in this absolutely immense habitat, but it also connects like 3 branches of the pathwork with each other, so people don't have to walk those distances and, you know, go back to the center and then branch off to one side, go back to the center, branch off to the other side. They can just hop on the tour and navigate the park that way. Now, even if you aren't a fan of path art, which is totally valid, I understand we don't all have this condition that is just hungry for the satisfying clicks of the path tool. But even if you aren't into path art, I will say that the layout of the park overall that was created with the path art here is like this super easy layout that is actually one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite ways to structure a park, just by starting with a huge circular design. You're gonna have the majority of your guest amenities there, and then just branching off from there. I think it's such an easy approach to park layout. It sort of guides itself, honestly. It's one of those situations or strategies really where once you get started, once you have your starting circle, it just flows, I guess. You don't really have to think too much about how you're going to do your park layout. It just sort of happens. It sort of dictates, like, yeah, hey, we start at the circle, and then you radiate outwards. And I feel like if you're struggling with park layouts, skip the path art section of it, but give this layout a try in some way, shape, or form. And I think that you're really gonna find that it's really easy and foolproof, I guess I'll say. And if you are struggling with park layout, which I think a lot of people are, it's a comment that I see regularly. Let me know in a comment down below. Do you want me to do like a video with tips on how to come up with your park layout and stuff like that? Because it's not something I find myself struggling with a lot. Maybe you think, huh, Evo, you probably should struggle a little more because this ain't looking good. That's totally fair. But from my perspective, I don't really struggle with coming up with park layouts time and time again, because you know how many parks I build. So yeah, I'd be very happy to do a video on that if that's something that you guys would find helpful. Here again, using the newly discovered move tool to get an alternating pattern of these different types of planters. It's much easier to do it this way, placing down the stock of items that you need, and then using the move tool to get them into location. And for the best effect, I do recommend that you alternate as much as you can mentally stand. It's a little bit more work, I totally get that. I don't do it every single time myself. It's easier to just use the same decoration piece over and over. But if you want to go the extra mile and really want to have your parks look good, as often as you can, try to go for an alternating pattern using different pieces. It just looks much better. It becomes much less noticeable that each planter is a literal exact copy of one another. And I think it just makes a huge and unexpected difference. On the left, or at the bottom right now, we have, oh, and now it's on the top. It's so confusing. We have another garden, or I guess more a lake in the park that is purely decorative. And this is like a little guest section where I'm gonna add seats, and across from it is gonna be amenities. So this is where guests can, you know, have a bit of a rest, have their overpriced lunch, their overpriced coffees, and look out over this nice serene lake with the Jurassic Park gate there, and there's a zip line going across. And I just love creating little moments like that in my parks, which is probably mind-boggling and flabbergasting to you all, because yes, this is a dinosaur game, and I just use space on something that's not gonna have dinosaurs. But honestly, Oh my god, I feel like I'm having an epiphany right now. Is this insomnia? I think this is just insomnia, but I think I'm having an epiphany. I build so many parks. That is why I don't mind skipping out on some dinosaurs once in a while. Because as soon as I finish this park, I'm going to be building the next one. And I'm going to have a different opportunity to add the dinosaurs that I want. I think that's it. I think I just cracked the code. That's why I don't mind wasting space, because I know that the next park build is gonna happen really soon. And so how do I say this? I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. Did I just really figure myself out? I feel like I just had a huge introspective moment here. But yeah, I really think that that's it. I build so many parks that's why I don't feel like I'm missing out when I'm creating a lake instead of a Spinosaurus habitat. You know, that sort of stuff. Okay. All of that aside, this teeny tiny island over here, accessible only via the zip lines, which also has viewing galleries looking into this absolutely massive lagoon, and then some viewing galleries on the opposite side as well, which are just like regularly accessible. I just had this huge space left in the park, and I did, even though it was only a 4-hour build, I did start to feel the creativity fatigue at this point. So instead of going for another huge tour with exhibits, I realized, hey, I haven't added a lagoon to this park yet, so let's just make a massive lagoon so big that I can have like these islands cut out of it and incorporate it that way. And I think that turned out really, really cool. And I left this island sunken down purposefully so that the view is closer to the water surface instead of really elevated. Interestingly, this is, I think, the first park build ever where I added the entry point last. This is literally the last thing I did, creating the entry. I was so confused why nothing was working, and then I realized, oh my god, I haven't added the entry point yet. But there it is, and this is an overview of the park build in total. Again, stay tuned for a tour from your sarcastic underpaid tour guide, and I'll be adding the animals in my own time so you can see them for the first time when we do the tour. Thank you so much for watching and liking, subscribing, and until next time, enjoy the game.